Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented as always by Remington Tavern. Coming at you live from the Cincy Light Studios. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can check them out on Instagram at Remitav Cincy. That's Remitav Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. While you're there, be sure to grab an ice cold Cincy Light. They got it on draft. They got it in cans. However you like it, they got it. So have yourself a cold one. Support the people who support us, and have a drink with the neighborhood there at Remington Tavern. George, we took last week off. We had a basketball game to cover. You were in the midst of moving and golfing, probably more golfing on Tuesday than moving.
Tuesday was more golf.
You look like you were a prisoner in a padded room right now. I asked you earlier if you were sitting on the floor. I had no idea, but you've assured me you are not. In any case, good to have you back.
I'm half moved in. Actually, everything's here. It's just, going to be probably months before it's ever put away. And we decided to do a bunch of new furniture and stuff. And we wanted to get in here and get a feel for the place before we ordered stuff, because we wanted something that fit properly. And I don't know why we couldn't have done that ahead of time, but we didn't. The best thing about it, though, it'll get done. And I got these little ice balls. Like, you see those bourbon balls?
Yeah.
So I used to make those. Well, I bought a refrigerator that makes them for me now, and it is awesome. In fact, I bought 2 of them, so I've got more balls of ice than Frosty the Snowman. I mean, I'm storing them, and it's like I'm starting to waste them. It's like I've got too many bourbon balls, and trust me, when you've got those things sitting there and you see them after a long day, you're going to end up drinking more bourbon than what I would have without it. So maybe that refrigerator wasn't such a good idea, because I can't resist these things.
Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, like I said, good to have you back. There's been plenty that's gone on since you were last here, as we have plenty to talk about here tonight. But we'll get started.
Basketball games, that'll drive up the bourbon intake.
Yeah, well, since you were last here, which was 2 weeks ago now, so right before New Year's, Cincinnati hosted Houston, lost 67-60. Cincinnati went to West Virginia, lost 62-60, and they went to Orlando on Sunday and lost to UCF 73-72. It's been tough going.
Look, all 3 of those games they could have won. You got to think 1 or 2 of them they should have won, and to go 0-3. I mean, it's just such an indictment of what we've been talking about, really, the last 2 seasons. And whatever it is, it's not working. We've got a way big enough sample size now of these late game, can't finish the job type of losses, that it's not just law of averages and, they'll win some close ones coming up. No, this is such a pattern, and it's we know what's going to have to be done, unfortunately, but something's got to change. I mean, there's something that doesn't allow I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something that does not allow them to finish close games. I mean, Houston, they went how long without scoring at the end of that game? And, what happened at the end of West Virginia, and then what happened Sunday. I don't know how you're 3 of 18 and the shot you get at the buzzer is a 3. You're 3 of 18 from 3 going into that already. You got a center who scored 24 points or whatever it was.
He did.
Yep. And look, I know sometimes those options aren't there, but the good teams more often than not find a way to get their hot hand or get the best shot at the end of a game. And that didn't happen. That just didn't happen. And so the teams that don't do that are going to lose those games more often than not. And Cincinnati looks like one of those teams.
Did you have a chance to catch any of the press the post game radio show with Dan and Terry that Coach Wes Miller had to apologize for?
Oh, the West Virginia one?
Yeah, where he kind of crashed out.
Yeah, how could I miss it?
Well,
It was
golfing,
all over
I don't
everything.
know.
That game. I'm in Florida, and I knew by 9:30 that night. And I'm way too forgiving on that stuff. I really am, because
You've been around. You've seen some stuff.
Right. But I'm a little forgiving on that because I know what it's like when I have a bad loss or I have a bad show or something happens. And I don't, sometimes you're the head coach, so you got to keep it within reason. But that was a bit of a meltdown. You got to handle it better than that. You really do. Or maybe, you're just kind of in the wrong gig, but there's a lot of pressure on this guy. He knows what's going on. He knows it's collapsing. And unfortunately, it's maybe to the point things like that happen, and it just makes you think he doesn't have the answer.
Well, let's get into the UCF game a little bit here. You mentioned Mustafa Cham, 24 points. He went back to Orlando where he was plucked, I think is a fair word to say. He was plucked from there. Both he and his big man's coach. The fans were understandably upset about it. They boo him. Wes Miller addresses it in his post-game presser that the adults, I guess, need to be more accepting of situations like that. I don't think the fans did anything wrong. I think that it was more than acceptable for fans to react as such. But Mustafa Cham starts out slow. He ends up having his career high. He ends up having a fantastic game. And this is what we were sold on Mustafa Cham. He's
correct.
He's been building on this now. This is 4 or 5 games that he's been in double digits. He's been getting progressively better over the course of the last 5 games or so. And you wonder, I'd hope this isn't the ceiling for him. But I would think this is probably close to.
Well, I mean, he has been coming into his own, or so it seems, and leading up to this. You hope he can keep playing at this level. I think he can. I think he was one of those guys. He was probably more of a project than I thought he would be coming in, just because he impressed me when I saw him last year when UC played him. He impressed me as a guy that was well on his way then, but he really looks like it now. I hope he's going to hit his stride and continue, and these games will be more common and where he's asserting himself and feeling very comfortable on the offensive end. So you hope he gets there. And if he does, good on him. Certainly the booing didn't bother him. If anything, maybe it made him play better. I don't know. But I don't know how you wouldn't expect that, given that he had played there and then left the way he left, which, we know what the portal is and all that. But when you take the coach and the player, you're probably going to hear some boos when you come back to that arena. So I don't know why. I mean, that's something I would have expected.
Now, this is a team that has struggled from 2 over the course of the entire season. In this game in particular, they struggled from 3. They actually they dialed it far back from what they normally shoot from 3. I'm assuming because they weren't shooting well from 3. They go 2 of 10 in the first half, 1 of 9 in the second half, to end 3 of 19 as you got to earlier. But they did kind of run through not necessarily the post, not necessarily I guess you could say the paint. 42 of their 72 was from the paint. But they did have a concerted effort to get the ball down low. And we saw it pretty much the entire game.
Yeah. And that's what, I've kind of been clamoring for that. I wish they could have done it one more time at the end of the game, but Again, maybe UCF did a good job defending that. It was one play, but it's one play you got to have. But no, they've got some guys that can score in there, and that doesn't necessarily mean, the old-fashioned on the block and turn around, fire up a jump hook. But they did well on the offensive board in that game too, as opposed to Central Florida. And that's another stat. It was like 10-4 or whatever, but that's 6 extra possessions right there. You'd think a close game, you might make that count. But it's good to see them doing that, though, and finding, I guess, more efficient ways to score than just chucking a three, whenever you got a halfway open look. So maybe that's getting better. And we'll see. Tomorrow night's a game they should win, in my opinion. They should win that game at home, and we'll see where they're at. But I kind of know where they're at. But is there any way in hell, any way they can go on any sort of run that makes this feel better, in a month and a half? I don't see it coming, but it's going to take a monumental run to turn this thing around.
Well, I'm not trying to necessarily get away from the UCF game, but sure, you host Colorado on Wednesday, but then you follow that up having to face number 2 in the country, Iowa State.
Yep.
And number 1 in the country, Arizona, the game right thereafter, within the span of 4 or 5 days. So it's tough sledding.
Yeah, it's not likely, right? It's not likely.
So even if you get the Colorado game, hypothetically speaking, now you're looking at 9 and 10 being your record over the course of the next 3 games when all said and done.
Yeah, not a good spot to be.
No, sure isn't. But you put yourself in this spot. You lost games that you had.
What kind of run would it take for him? What do they got? 15 left?
Yeah.
God, you got to win like 10 or 11 of those, right? Before you would even consider that. I don't think it can be saved, but how many wins would you be comfortable and say, maybe it's working now? I don't know if there is a number for me.
I just wonder at what point you start talking buyout with him. I don't know, because I don't know how you get this. I don't know how you leave him in a position to maybe he's still around when you get to the Big 12 tournament, which I think is your only shot of getting in. And even that,
Right.
That's you only have a shot to get in because everyone has the same percentage to get in at that point in time, hypothetically speaking. Again,
other than the higher seeds are going to be playing more games, I guess.
Right. So I don't know. I feel I've lost any and all confidence in this team.
Yeah, I guess it took me about 2 minutes of gibberish to get to that point because that's where I am. I after the game against West Virginia, it's like the only way is if you run off like a 13-2 or whatever. Well, that's already 0-1, so that ain't happening. So yeah, it's not good, and we know what the AD should be doing, and we know what should be priority 1 on his plate right now, and there is nothing else that even compares with what's on his plate right now, other than getting the next one right. And if you're on the board and you're interested in athletics, if you're anyone in that administration, you're interested in athletics, you got to ask yourself and be comfortable that you have the right people involved in that process. And, is Cunningham the guy that you want, ultimately making that decision? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing goes. And I'm sure, the way he operates, if it's still him, it's going to be very quiet. I just hope they're quick. I hope they don't wait for the field to get picked over.
Well, if that's the case that you're making, then you're running out of time to do anything in regards to Cunningham and his job.
Right.
To have a guy settled in place in order to make a hire.
But he can be in place, but there could be somebody else kind of pushing the decision.
Potentially. I don't know. Well, that's probably a
Because it's a
bigger.
very important decision.
With it being January 13th already, I'd be a little surprised if you make a move at the AD spot at this point, but
I would too.
stranger things have happened.
Too. So, but I think there's going to be, I know people are concerned about that, and they have reason to be. But I think there's going to be a few more cooks probably that are going to be driving, and I think it'll ultimately, have to be someone the AD's comfortable with for sure. But I don't know. And if you aren't comfortable with him making that decision, are you going to move on from him anyway at some point soon?
Well, if you're on the board and you're not comfortable with John Cunningham making the decision, then what the hell are any of us doing?
Well, I know, but like you said, time's running out. So I don't know, but it's not. I don't know. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. I just know that there's some things with basketball I probably wouldn't have done. But look, we thought Wes was going to pan out because he seemed like this up-and-coming guy. Did he do great where he was before? No, but he was trending up, and he had all those wins piled up before the age of 40, which was impressive. And sure. You think a guy like that might be ready to, step up to the plate and hit it out of the park, and they gave him a shot, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, at the end of the day, he was hired to be a coach in the American, and unfortunately in the Big 12, he has coached like a man who was hired to be a coach in the American.
Right. Yes, at best.
Well,
and we see coaches do make a heck of a difference. Of course, talent.
Sure.
Of course, money to bring in players. But there's a lot of teams that have played a very high level of basketball that don't have the budget that UC has, and have been very competitive.
Now, I'd be surprised, truthfully, if this team at any point just kind of threw in the towel as a whole or gave up. You have Day Thomas in his final season of eligibility. I'd be surprised if he doesn't seem to me like a guy who would just give up. You have Baba Miller and Mustafa Cham, probably the highest ranked of the Bearcats on NBA watch lists.
Right.
I'd be surprised if either of them threw in the towel and gave up. That said, you still have guys who are playing for their next spot, whether it's here or elsewhere, in guys like Keyshawn Tillery, Tyler McKinley, Sean Abayev, Jordy Rodriguez. We'll see.
It's kind of interesting. Something just struck me when you're saying that, and it's like kind of with this portal thing, it kind of makes these guys play hard all the time because
you have to
wanting to get to that next level of money, and you're not going to do it throwing in the towel. And look, some pros do that, but those are the guys that know somebody's going to pay me because I have a proven track record. These guys don't have one.
Well, they're all on 1 year. They're all 1 year mercenaries. They're not on multi-year deals. So we'll see what that looks like as we enter this new era of portal. Jizzle James, another guy who's maybe he plays here, maybe he's elsewhere. Who knows? But he's another guy with eligibility. So I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how this team continues to play down the stretch. In the back half of this season, you've got 16 gone. You got 15 left, barring a miracle. I don't see this going the way that most of us Bearcat fans would like it to go. It's been a rough watch most of the year already. It will more than likely continue to be so, especially when you look past Colorado and see those next two looming. It's not great. It's in fact, it's gotten so bad that we have a social media platform calling for a paper bag game. I hope none of this comes to fruition. I remember the paper bag games of the 90s for the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, we're a long way away from that. But here we
We may
are
not
where
be 24 hours away from that, Aaron, if this thing happens. I don't
I
think
just mean the lost decade of the Bengals.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
20
Yes.
we're 2.5 decades removed from the lost decade,
Right.
which was dreadful at best. You
We're
covered it.
5
I
years
remember.
into it for UC basketball in a way.
Fair enough.
I
But
know.
you covered it as a sports anchor. I grew up watching it, living and breathing it, because
I
that
remember
was
when
all
it
before.
happened in New Orleans, and it was hilarious. But guys, that saw it then, I mean, that was a thing. Like, and they were known as the Aints. I mean, they're still known as the Aints. People my age, when they call them the Aints, and those bags show up, and yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. I get the frustration. I get all that. I'm planning to go. I like to go, and
Sans
I'll sit
paper
there and
bag,
see
right?
what it is, and I'm gonna try to enjoy the dough I've tossed out to go watch these games, and yeah, I mean, I understand some of the booing and stuff, and it's changed with this money. That has really changed. It's changed my outlook on do you boo them or not. I don't boo. Um, I might boo coaches and refs. I'll do that, but I haven't booed like the players. But I mean, I'll boo professional players, and these are professional players now. So I'm thawing out to where, but I hate booing someone so much younger than me too. They still got a lot to learn.
It's tough to boo your own team because you do still hope they turn it around. I mean, it's not as if we're rooting for this to just be a sinking ship the rest of the way.
Right. And it's if somebody does it, it won't bother me, but I wouldn't do it myself. I'm not going to go, you know, I understand the frustration. And quite honestly, the bags are funny. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but the bags are funny. I mean, we've seen them at every professional team's games when teams have hit the skids. Maybe not Pittsburgh, but we've seen them, and maybe not the Yankees, at least not since probably the early '70s. But everyone goes through it, and they're fans. Fans are fans, man. They're passionate, and they want their team to win. And when it doesn't, there's displeasure, and they have a right to take a paper bag in there, I guess, and put it on their head.
Well, I did see today on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Nick Van Exel and Jacob Evans both speaking out against it. So take that for what you will. I do hope that it doesn't really come to fruition. Maybe like nothing grandiose. Maybe you see a scattering here and there of some people who
Yeah,
decide
I
to
don't
go that route, but
see. You can have displeasure and booing. I guess probably can be embarrassing too. But wearing those, I mean, I'm sure these guys, for the most part, feel bad enough, if not all of them, feel worse than I do when they lose, and there's no reason to embarrass them. You know what I mean? And it's
yep.
probably not a good look for the fan base ultimately. I don't think it affects like recruiting and that stuff now because of the dollars,
Right.
but who knows? I mean, there may be some mom sitting there seeing that, at home or a clip of it and say, I don't want Junior going around those assholes. I don't know.
I think a lot changes even in how you would use that against a recruit if you have an entire change from the head coach down. So I don't know. Money speaks probably louder than anything at this point anyway. So we'll see what it all comes down to. You got, like you said, about 24 hours before we have an answer if people do decide to show up with bags. Even if they do, I can't imagine it lasts more than, I don't know, about 2 minutes or so before you get tired of your own hot breath inside that bag. It's not as if you're
What? How funny would it be if some people show up in bags and UC opens with like a 10-0 run? I know that won't happen, but if it did, do the bags come off and do you show your
Well,
face after you had a bag on it?
George, the problem with that is this team doesn't know how to play with the lead because they've only had about, I don't know, a dozen of them the entire season. So
Right.
we'll see.
How many quick starts?
Yeah.
I
So
know.
in any case, we'll shift gears here a little bit, get away from basketball and all that lies therein, and we'll talk the football team because you've been away. We did have the portal seems to be about over at this point in time. You've had plenty of additions. I've not gotten myself well versed enough because it was such a quick rapid fire of guys coming to Cincinnati, but it seems that that they've done pretty well in at least rebuilding, retooling a defense. But that starts at the top down, of course, and you see a new defensive coordinator at the helm and a new defensive scheme, both of which we were clamoring for towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I like this. And, Tyson Vite had a chance and it didn't work for whatever reason. Not necessarily just a scheme, but it was tough watching them just play so soft all the time. It really was. And maybe that's what he felt like he had to do with personnel. I don't know, but it didn't work. I mean, maybe that's the best they had and that's the best they could do, but that wasn't close to good enough. And you got to find a way to get pressure on quarterbacks. You got to find a way to set the edges and stop some of those runs, which I thought they were horrible at that this year. So I hate to see a guy go, but you have to make a change. This isn't a friendly business sometimes. And I like the guy they brought in. I know he's got a history with Satterfield, but
Right.
when you get into what he's done and where he's been and how it's worked and kind of that whole deal with this 3-4 defense he's been running, it's done well. It's been very, very, very serviceable against all kinds of offenses.
Serviceable, we'll go with pun intended, as Nate Woody comes by way of Army. He does have a working relationship as well with Court Braswell, as Braswell came from Army before he got here. Satterfield worked with Nate Woody when he was at App State, and he does bring a 3-4 defense, so you will no longer see the same 3-3-5. Essentially, what you have is a safety playing down in the linebacker spot. So it's an iteration, I guess, of a 3-3-5 in a way, but it's essentially at the heart of it a 3-4.
Yeah, I mean I saw a few things and his philosophies, I guess, and a lot of it is setting edges, stopping runs, stopping big runs. And so we'll see if they can make it happen. I hope they got some of the guys they needed. This portal thing's so crazy in this compact, 2-week period?
2 weeks. Yeah.
That is so insane. So I want to know how much work's going on before, like, the end of December. It's got to almost all be in the barn by that point because you're talking about kids going to visit, and they probably know enough already and have done some research, but going to visit, maybe visiting another place, and making a decision. You got to do all that in 2 weeks. And then what about these teams running this operation? Holy God, no wonder recruiting departments are exploding because you got to have a ton of people.
Well, I don't even know what the definition of tampering is at this point in regards to collegiate athletics,
Right.
but you are allowed to speak with an agent. So essentially you can be making all of the backroom deals before it even gets to the portal, because all you have to do is work with the agent. So you can make your offers. You can figure out what you can already be going through the negotiation process and drawing up contracts and all of that before the kid even steps a foot, before you've even spoken a word to the kid. which is all
right.
crazy.
What if a deal's made and the kid walks into this office and he, now I'm sure he's back channeled with players and knows the coach isn't a jerk or is a jerk. But could you imagine? I mean, I don't know. It's just a weird environment. They've tweaked it and all. It is still weird. And is this a better way of doing it? Maybe. I mean, because all that stuff that happened in the spring and the summer, and it's just like coaches didn't know what the hell they had coming out of spring ball. They had to wait till they show up at fall camp, and it was nuts. So maybe this will be better for the game ultimately. The game's honestly on the field in a pretty good spot. Most of these playoff games have been excellent. There were a lot of good bowl games, in my opinion.
It's in a good spot unless you're a team that has a bye in the first round of the playoffs, because those teams have not fared well over the course of the last 2 seasons.
No, they haven't. And this run by Miami is really, really impressive. And look, they were a team that should be in the playoffs, and that whole Notre Dame argument. And Miami deserved to be in over the Irish because of the head-to-head game.
Sure.
But I did not expect this out of them. I did not expect them to beat Ohio State. I did not expect them to be in the championship game. And then Indiana, on the other hand, it doesn't seem to matter who they play. But it seems like the game, all this angst about transfers and this and the money and all that, damn, they're putting on a pretty good product ultimately when you get, to the Power 4 level.
Yep. So we'll see. You have a retooled offense as well, but I mean the biggest story at this point is just Nate Woody, new defense. Yeah. The pressure should change things. I would imagine if you're able to start pressuring with your defensive line, I can't help but think that will automatically make your secondary at least better. Especially if you have a defensive coordinator who, I don't know, tells the defensive backs they can play with their face to the quarterback at any point in time. Maybe you end up with a turnover or two.
Yeah, it just felt like the past few years, certainly the last two, probably the last three, they've worried so much more about giving up the big play in the deep ball that this year it was just glaring. It's like, we'll give up 7 yards. We'll give up 6 yards. We'll give up 5 yards. We'll give up 7. It's just like, go in there and try to take control of this thing. And I just never felt like our defense, UC's defense, ever felt like they were going to set the tone and take control of the situation.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what this new look is. I would imagine if you are going into this season with your seat a little warm, and you're looking at potentially the school deciding to part ways, you want to put your best foot forward in trying to make a case for why you should continue to be the head coach at the University of Cincinnati. And you bring in a guy that you trust, you bring in a guy that you believe in, and you bring in a defensive scheme that you're familiar with. So I would hope this all spells good for the Cincinnati Bearcats in next season, because it was frustrating as hell to watch, especially in those last 5 games.
Yeah, and Vite landed on his feet. Good for him. I'm glad he did. But I think this decision had to be made, and Satterfield at least, recognized, I got to do something different. And some of that may be self-preservation, that he does feel the heat, but he should feel the heat. And I think this season, and I don't know if they can do it because they lost a lot, and I don't know if it can be better than this season, but, they better be able to hang in some games against tough competition and not finish the season in November the way they have the last 2 years. He's got to figure that out, or then, as you said, UC may have to make another decision. Because I feel like in my mind, I probably gave basketball and Wes 1 year more than I should have. I kind of gave him a pass last year just because the shooting fell off the table in January. Now, that could be step up in competition and all that. But I liked what I was seeing. And then the shooting fell off, and I'm like, Christ, could that be bad luck? Could it just be? I don't know, but I did not feel right putting his head on the chopping block after last year. But if you have, it's like if you have any sense that things are going south, you got to pull the plug. I wouldn't have last year, and I was wrong. I would this year. And I feel like Satterfield's got that going on because I'm going to be mad if football fails this year because I feel like he earned another year. We shall see.
With as efficient as the offense is, and I don't expect this offense to be as efficient next season. I think that's a lofty expectation. But if the defense can give you a couple 3-and-outs, if they can make a couple stops that they weren't able to make last season, and get the offense the ball a couple more times a game, even just 2 more times a game, and kind of flip the script on how much how much time you possess the ball in a game, that's a world of difference.
Yeah, think about the end of that BYU game when you see scores and it's like, holy crap, get a 3-and-out and we got a ball game. And then BYU just went 6 yards, 8 yards, and that kid ran wild.
Yep.
That can't happen.
I think there's reason to have hope. I think we can all find hope in the football team. We'll see if it's able to show that on the field.
I'm still in the show me stage, though. I'm not sold, but I'm saying I wouldn't fire yet. But we'll see how this year goes.
There's no spring portal, so this should be the team going into next season, barring, of course, injury and anything in regards to that. Or who knows what comes of is there a guy who gets drafted into the NFL, doesn't sign his contract, goes back to school like we saw with Baylor in the basketball team with the NBA draft and all that. Who knows? Who knows what other weird shit might happen as you get into football season because things are bananas right now.
It is so bananas. There are no rules.
So in any case, we'll switch gears one more time here, and we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who they don't finish the season with a win. They finish the season with a loss, which I was fine with. You lose to the Cleveland Browns, whatever. Winning there doesn't help you in the draft process. Winning there, okay, you lost to the Browns, whatever. So now you're looking at the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft.
Right.
We'll see who falls there. We are far too early in the draft process to start mock drafting. I'm not quite there yet.
I'm not either, but but I have a quick comment on that.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost assumed like it'll probably be some kind of defensive lineman or something. Am I crazy? Maybe I am crazy, and I'll have to look more into it. But if that safety from Ohio State is there, I think I grab him.
You're talking about Caleb Downs. I get that. Yeah. I also think that Bain from Miami, if he falls to 10, I think he's a freak.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. We got plenty of time before we get to
that.
That'll
be determined by free agency, or a lot of it will be determined.
Sure. Well, I hope the Bengals put themselves in a position where they're not banking on a position to fall to them at 10 and then are drafting based on position, but instead are drafting on best player available. We'll see how free agency goes. But today we find out that the last domino has fallen in the AFC North, as you've seen the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens, probably the most surprising, as they part ways with John Harbaugh, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin steps away on his own. I don't know if that's by design, where they didn't have to fire him, but he leaves kind of pushed out the door. I don't know. But Zach Taylor's the only one left standing in the division of the AFC North. I am flabbergasted.
I am too. I would never. I mean, if you would have just said a month ago, 2 weeks ago, that John Harbaugh is going to be gone. Mike Tomlin's going to be gone. We knew Stefanski was probably gone, but
Sure.
Zach would be the only one standing. So as my friend told me today, as we sit here, Zach Taylor is the best head coach in the AFC North, bar none.
I want to throw up.
He's also the worst.
He is. Well, he is that.
He's the only one. How does this happen?
I almost feel like Zach Taylor's probably the one who should have lost his job the most of those three.
Well, yeah,
Stefanski's roster was terrible, and I don't know how much of that's even on him. Harbaugh had gotten a little stale. Tomlin had gotten a little stale, but was Harbaugh fireable? I know that it seemed that there'd been dissension in the ranks in that locker room. It seemed like Lamar and Harbaugh were not on the same page. Lamar has quietly missed nearly as many games in the last several seasons as Joe Burrow. I believe that the numbers are astounding. If you actually look at I think it's the last 5 seasons. If you include playoff games, they're damn near identical on how many games that they've played, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
But you have that going on in Baltimore. You have Tomlin. There's been quiet rumblings about Tomlin, the Steelers wanting Tomlin out for the last, I don't know, 2 seasons, I guess.
Right. I
because
spent
he
just
has
to prove I'm open-minded. One of the guys, I was with 3 other guys last week in Florida golfing, and one of them's a big Steelers fan. So this dude bitched every day about Mike Tomlin, and he needs to be fired. I'm like, you're lucky to have that guy. No, we're not. We haven't won. And then he started saying the record here recently and the playoff record. And I'm like, that don't fly in Pittsburgh. And they, I know he resigned or what. I don't know what arrangement they have, but you're right. There was total unrest. And after he laid out the facts and the record, I was surprised how little success they've had in the last 9 years.
Well, you could argue that Tomlin won his Super Bowl with Bill Cowher's team.
Not only can you, this guy did. He said if it wasn't for Cowher, Tomlin had never won a Super Bowl, and I couldn't refute it.
The chin strikes again.
I like that guy.
The chin?
Yep.
Probably one of the top 5 punchable faces in the history of sports for me.
I was shocked. I thought when I talked to him, and I'm from Cincinnati, he was going to blow me up, and I'm like, I'm going to hate this guy, but that's okay. We'll see. He was the nicest, coolest dude. I was shocked. I'm like, how is this guy that I saw with the chin on the sidelines and always, and you're right. Yes, you're right. And he was such a prince of a man. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a big fan of his now.
Well, that's what Chad always says about Danny Hurley. And again, that guy is probably in the top 5 as well. So, I mean,
I'll tell you what, he's a damn good coach.
Something about those coaches, I guess. I'm intrigued to see what happens in the AFC North. You've left the door wide open for anybody to come into any of these teams, and again, I still think that Zach Taylor was least deserving to be given another opportunity because he can't seem to get anything done when it's not Joe Burrow at the helm. You have Joe Burrow seemingly speaking confidently about what's going on in the front office with Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin. We've seen the billboards. We've seen the unrest on social media. We know how the fans feel about these guys being in charge. Like I said, you've got Burrow in a lesser sense, but still along the same lines. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins kind of beating the same drum. You've given Joe everything he wanted last offseason. You brought back every guy that he said he wanted. I'm curious to see how this goes this offseason, but I don't know that you can give Zach Taylor any more leash next season. And if it has to be
No,
done,
it's to me with this roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball, you got to win games in the playoffs next year or it's over, right?
if you have to cut ties before the season is over, do so. You can't just
Absolutely. You
you
can't
can't just let the
sacrifice the season. I'm
nope.
with you. I agree with that. I think the leash should be very short. Um, it would have been hard for me after this season to bring him back. I mean, we don't know. Maybe Joe Burrow's telling Mike Brown if this guy isn't here. I don't think that's happening, but I don't know but to your point of him being the guy that you would be shocked as the only one left standing out of those AFC. Yes, it's shocking to me too. And I would have really been, I might have been pushed over the edge this year. I mean, enough is enough. There's enough talent on this roster. They lost games they shouldn't have lost. That Bears game was an abomination. You got to figure things out. And they haven't. And I love this guy. I love Zach. I think he's a world-class guy. But his job isn't to be a world-class guy. His job is to win football games, and it's not happening. And to me, this year is it. If you don't just get to the playoffs, you got to win a game or two. You got to get to where we feel like this team's back and this team's ready to win a Super Bowl. Because talent – I know defensively there were deficiencies, got a new coordinator, all that, but I don't care. I saw the games, and there's several games they should have won that they didn't.
You should be pushing for an AFC championship. I think not to do so would be inexcusable.
Without a doubt. And that's kind of the difference with these other organizations in the AFC North and the Bengals. Do you think the Ravens would have fired Zach Taylor today?
He wouldn't have been here. He would have been gone seasons ago.
Right.
At least two. At least two.
Do you think the Steelers would have had him and brought him back?
Absolutely not.
Right.
No shot.
They're not in the world. Now, Cleveland, I don't know what the hell they're doing. I'll tell you what. Well, I would have kept the head coach and gotten rid of the GM.
Well, I think it's interesting that is it Dan Pitcher has been he's been requested to be interviewed in Cleveland for a head coach vacancy. So maybe if Pitcher doesn't get that job and he's still here as the OC, maybe that's the guy that you have waiting in the wings to take Zach Taylor's spot if you do have to fire him next season.
Yes, as someone who could take over as interim and try to get this thing going. And hopefully they don't get to that point. But to me, I'm with you. I don't sacrifice the season. That seat's hot, and it's going to be hot from day one. How mad?
As it should be.
I don't know if you'd be as mad as me. But let's say in the AFC North and these coach openings, what if Jesse Minter ends up at Pittsburgh as the head coach? Because he's going to get plucked soon, I think.
Jesse Minter wouldn't. I want to see him succeed. It's not going to make me mad. I think Marcus Freeman in Pittsburgh would actually make me more mad than Jesse Minter. I don't know that.
I would be. Oh man, that's a tough one there that you just brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I always thought I've watched. Known Jesse doing this and that and shooting up the ladder the way he has. I'm like, God, I love him. Now, he's not going to come back and coach UC now, but daggone it. I thought that would have been good.
Yeah. We'll see. There's lots of openings right now already, and the offseason is nowhere near over in the NFL. So I don't know what's going to transpire.
No, there will be news every day. It's going to be insane.
We've already been shocked. I would not be surprised if there were some more surprises coming, especially once you start to see dominoes fall and who's still available, what other coaches get fired. Because
I see Vance Joseph's name was brought up going to Cleveland.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, he was
to go there, but I for his sake, I would like him to go there and get that head coaching job. But yeah, it's some of the names they've been bouncing around, and another former Cincinnati head coach, Bengals head coach, the Shula kid out there in L.A., Chris, right?
Okay, yeah.
He's a guy that's had his name out there in some of these coaching vacancies, and possibly Baltimore, because they may be looking for an offensive guy because you got Lamar. It's interesting to see. It's going to be a hell of an offseason with all these openings.
The NFL never stops. It has become a year-round thing, and
it's worked. Crazy. It worked. When I grew up, baseball was king. The NFL was rising, but baseball was king. And man, the NFL shot past Major League Baseball.
Yeah. Well, we'll see as the pendulum continues to swing on the NFL. I imagine there will probably be some more surprises before all is said and done in the coaching carousel.
Oh, without a doubt.
But what's going on in high school basketball, George?
Well, there's some Lakota West still undefeated, which is huge, and they are basically the number one team in the state right now. 11-0. They'll play 10-1 Mason a week from Friday. They're right now. When you look at those RPIs in the region, those are the top two teams. Winton Woods is 7-0 and playing well in Division II. Aiken's got 4 losses, but Aiken hasn't lost to anybody in the city. They've lost to all out-of-town teams. So they're highly respected in Division II. Division III, LaSalle, 10-1. Their only loss is to Moeller. McNick playing well in Division III. And they're 10-2, and then in Kentucky, you look at those RPIs that just came out in Kentucky. Covcath still playing very well, 13-1. Highlands 13-1. So they're the 2 top teams right here in this area, and they'll be playing coming up this Friday at Highlands. So I think the old Fort Thomas Pub will be cranking that night, and if the Birds win, there will probably be bourbon shots for everyone. Who knows? But yeah, a lot going on. Holy Cross is very good, and Lloyd beat Holy Cross about a week ago. So Lloyd's someone to look out for too.
All right. Well,
go Jugs.
There he is. Lloyd grad checks in. That's hilarious.
Well, I'm out of topics unless you got anything left in you, George.
No, they're calling me back to my cell. I'm gonna have to go, and lockdowns lights out in 3 minutes, man. I gotta go find my cot in this prison and get my orange on and go lay down.
Well, hopefully they don't give you enough sheets to call it a lights out on your own. So
God, that's a pleasant thought. There's somebody upstairs that probably hopes I do that.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for us here this week on George in the Jungle. Thanks as always to Cincy Light and Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. Check them out on Instagram at RemingTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But for George Vogel, I'm Aaron Smith. We'll be back here next week to discuss all of your Cincinnati sports.
Thank you, Aaron.